Hello, welcome back. Let's Fly Kerbal Space Program, the Rescaled edition. I am enjoying it so far. So it's been a couple of days since I did any recording, and what I was up to in the meantime was really reconfiguring some things. First thing, let's take a look here. I went and I dug into the config file for the real solar system for the whole Rescale mod, and I moved Kerbal Space Center closer to the beach and found a relatively flat spot where it looks like it's, it looks closer to the default. Look how fast those clouds are moving, those few little wispy clouds. I thought we already fixed this. Reset to save, thank you, and that should take care of my clouds moving way too fast. Okay, so that was one change that was made. I spent some time, I went in here and did something else. And something that I've been meaning to do for so long is because it's, because these procedural fuel tanks, you can fit all kinds of fuel in there. I went and made a set of textures for them. You see this one, CC for color code, kerosene. It has a gray band up there, means it's got kerosene in that. That one's got liquid hydrogen. That one's got liquid oxygen. That one's got kerosene and liquid oxygen. That one's got liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. And so just went through a whole bunch of these, up to and including for some of the TAC, the life support parts. Hey, that one's got waste in there. I'm not just absolutely certain that these are going to be the final version of a whole bunch of these textures. They work for now. Yeah, that one's got green for food, it's got blue for water, it's got white for air. That's just a basic life support supplies container. So that actually took a surprising amount of time to put all that together. This is largely to resolve the issue. See that as I keep on adding all these hydrogen and liquid oxygen tanks up to my space station, the entire thing turns orange. But there's necessarily anything wrong with orange, but I think we want to have maybe a greater variety of shades and hues. Another thing that I went through, and I realized that I had been making a mistake with all of my Atlatl series, and the Spork series, come to think of it. The mistake that I was making was whenever I was using these, the procedural fuel tanks. See, what are the options we have over here? There's a common procedural fuel tank. You have a procedural balloon tank. Read the description. It uses its pressure vessels as its outer strength layer. It means I can fit more fuel in. It is lighter. It is also more fragile. The fragile issue, whenever I had parts that were kind of doing the bungee pogo sticking thing, that was because these things are more fragile. I learned that in real life, these things, a balloon tank, there are a couple of real life spaceships that do use those, but they're so fragile, and as the fuel drains out of them, you have to pump them back up with compressed gases. That they're actually not used a whole lot. I decided that it was a mistake using them in my launch vehicles, which are subject to all these heavy G-forces and everything. We stack tons up on top of them. So I went and I redesigned the entire Atlatl series so that they no longer use the balloon tanks. They have just regular fuel tanks, except for the upper stages, which have the cryogenic tanks. Yep, so that was another thing we did. Also slightly updated the stats on the whole Atlatl series. And I went with one, what used to be the Atlatl 1, we actually downscaled the thing just slightly, and it's the Atlatl Mini. And this is the launcher which I expect to use for payloads which weigh less than 1 ton. Such as, for example, what I'm wanting to launch today, the BabelBird. The BabelBird is my first communication satellite. I decided that one of the things that I wanted to do was to emulate a lot of the features found in the Remote Tech mod without actually inviting the various troubles that happen by actually installing the mod, which means that whenever if I'm going to be sending probes and landers and rovers and whatnot to these other planets and other moons, I want to have communication satellites in the sky so that the guys in Kerbin can talk to them. You know what? I need to change this now that I have a texture for it. Oh, and I got that the right one. Yeah, I figured that these have that monomethylhydrazine and the N2O4, whatever that is. And it has some more colors on there. Ain't that nice? Yeah, let's get that up. Yeah, that works. Yeah, I decided to red and black. That's the for a tank that has the MMH and the N2O4, because that stuff is just outrageously toxic, and red and black, that looks like it's danger. Except this tank is not aligned correctly. You see this? Here, let's oh, that's what happened. There we go. Yeah, it was bugging me. Here, fix that. Good. Okay, so I did this. Let me see. Let's pull up the notebook. There's a whole lot of talking, not a whole lot of launching. List notes. Geosynchronous orbit. Here's how I figured this. Earth. I looked this up. It's 35.7 kilometers above the Earth. Earth has a larger radius than even my rescaled Kerbin, so we take the difference between the radius, which makes me think that above Kerbin I need this 38.3 kilometers orbit. I figured out with a good old maneuver mode math that my satellite, if I'm going to launch it into a 200-kilometer orbit, it needs just under 3,200 meters per second of delta V. This one has just under 3,500, so you definitely got some to spare. Not enough to send it to the moon or anything, but yeah. This is actually just a first sketch of a communications satellite, and this is probably not the ones that we're going to be sending to the other planets. Yeah, okay, that should work. Let's check the staging. There's our first engine. There's our boosters and the launch clamps. Booster separates. Yes, this is correct. Then all this, but I want to give a separate stage for the payloads engine, which is this one right here. Good. Okay, so yeah, there are things that happened there. Let me see one other thing that's worth noting. Here, I will actually demonstrate. Whenever I change this to Atlatl 05 Charlie, actually slightly expanded the capacity of the Atlatl 5 series. So now we're up to version C. Notice I'm already using a mainsail for something. This one, it's 5. It's slightly overrated, so it can carry up to 7.5 tons. Notice in the rescaled mod, in the rescaled version with the increased delta V numbers, for a 7.5 ton payload, I already need a mainsail, and I'm thinking that eventually I'll need lifters that will lift 3 times that, if not more. So I did one other thing. Is I went and I got, the KW rocketry pack. I only installed select portions of the KW rocketry. I didn't, obviously with the procedural fuel tanks, I have no need for any of the fuel tanks. So I got the 2.5 meter and the 3 3/4 meter rocket engines, because I know eventually I'll need those. While I was there, picked up where'd they go? The smooth, yeah, here we go. The smooth RCS pods, although I haven't really put those on anything yet. But I remembered how much I loved those parts. Those will be good for my airplanes whenever I get back to doing some space planes. Okay, Atlatl, I decided that for the purpose of this, that my Atlatl Mini and the 01 Charlie, those probably share the same vehicle assembly building, so whenever we have one of those ready, I can do either an Atlatl Mini or the little 1-ton guy. Hey, we're actually launching in daylight this time. How about that? Yep, reloaded. There we go. Okay, let me see. We already have FAR up. I want to close this, close orbit info, open my launch info, close Delta V stats. Don't need that right now. I made, in MechJab, I made a custom window that has these are just the very few lines of information that I actually end up using in the course of a launch. So that should work. Okay, and I'm just aiming for regular 200-kilometer orbit right now, right? Here, let's turn all this crap off again. Oh, now I have 2 unknown objects again. All right, I'm not going to worry too hard about that. Anything else I need to do? Nothing coming to mind, so let's go. There we go. It always starts to take off kind of disconcertingly slowly. Roll program. But that actually means that I can do maximum throttle through a whole lot of this launch, and maximum throttle being where this engine's at its most efficient. Let's not do too much gravity turn too fast here, guys. Okay. Kind of arguing with me a little bit. Remember the last time I launched a little rocket, it ended up being kind of a disaster. That was when I was trying to put that multi-docking truss, trying to attach that to the space station. And this one's kind of fighting me some. All right, let's calm it down. Good. Leave it right there for right now. About to ditch the SRBs. Oh, that's another thing. I should talk about that. I figured out the kind of unusual behavior that I was seeing out of the solid rocket boosters whenever it came time to jettison them, and they just flung themselves sideways at a really disconcertingly high rate of speed. I figured out that I was using the procedural structural part in order to construct my nose cones, which, as far as the game is concerned, is not the same thing as actually using a dedicated nose cone, as far as FAR is concerned. So I was seeing way too much drag off of those nose cones, is what I was seeing. I mean, off of the procedural structural parts, which I just made into a cone shape. Let's come on, guys. Let's follow that prograde vector. I'm kind of concerned about how much of a gravity turn we're doing. I'm thinking that might be too much too fast, but I don't want to get too far off that prograde vector because we'll spin out of control again. But then look at the apoapsis. It's climbing. I'm just worrying. I'm too much of a worrywart. It'll be good. It's okay. Yeah, besides, we climb up here, we start to get some better control over it. Yeah, so anyway, use the nose cones, which I had to go in. I had to edit a file because you get the procedural parts pack and the nose cones as they come. They try to emulate the stock nose cones, which are just absurdly short and stubby. You can't make them long enough, but you go. There's one line you can edit in the part config file, and you can get actually reasonable proportions out of them. I had a little conversation about that with the mod developer. Okay. And away we go. Apoapsis right up there, exactly 200. Okay, cool. Makes me happy. And the stage still have 967 meters per second remaining. Yeah, I went in the overall upgrade and redesign of the whole Atlatl series is definitely as aiming for reaching orbit with significant amounts of delta V still in the tank. So we're, generally just increasing the capabilities of the whole line. Should we go ahead and extend? Yeah, let's extend all the widgets. Extend all the widgets. Make sure that the BabelBird looks like it's going to function correctly. There's something that I really want to do is I want to use some of the infernal robotics parts, the various hinges and the rotatrons, bending and rotating parts in order to make various satellites, probes, rovers that will fold up to fit inside of a payload fairing during launch and then extend outward. This is something that in months past that I really had some fun with those. But they've been buggy in the past, but they're reported to not be so buggy now. But I know I keep on debating to my own self that, and using just a few select features out of the Kerbal attachment system. I would love to be able to use my Kerbals to attach struts and fuel lines, as I'm anticipating doing a lot more orbital construction of interplanetary vehicles in the fairly near future. Again, that one is reported to be somewhat stable, but I've had a bad experience with it in the past. I don't know. I'm still on the fence as to whether to go and include that in my main save, in my main game. I mean, I want to play with the toys, but I will be so irritated if I have another mission that gets destroyed by a buggy, glitchy mod. As that has happened to me so many times in the past. Every single time, every time I've ever had a robot arm in a shuttle, things have exploded. Every time. I should stop dwelling on it. And just convince myself, okay, don't use the moving parts to dock something. Ever. Don't ever dock something if you have the moving parts in anything other than the default at rest position. Bad stuff happens if you do. Maybe if I gave it just those couple of rules. Kerbal attachment system. Don't play with the winches. Let me see. I guess we don't need launch info anymore. We'll go with the full orbit info that has all the extra numbers. There we go. And time compression. Let's get up to that apoapsis. Circular enough. Good. Shut it down. Good. And decouple node. Bang. There we go. Just like that. I think we're going to leave the BabelBird right here, and I just want to switch over to the Dart. Dart, how much fuel? Man, we've got lots of fuel left in this thing, but I am not interested in going and docking with this one with the station or doing anything else with it. Here, let's RCS this thing just out of the way of the BabelBird. I just want to simply deorbit it. And this will be a totally functional, if it deorbits correctly, and that will be a thoroughly perfect first flight of Atlatl Mini and Dart Mini. Alright. Yeah. 0 flaws. That worked perfectly. Switch back to my BabelBird. So 38,317, and here is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the advice so many people have been giving me for so long. Let's do this whole mech-jeb thing, huh? Yeah, we'll schedule a burn at the next apoapsis. Just give us plenty of time to think about it. Create a new maneuver node 2. We're going to change our apoapsis to... I wonder why it has this number in there. I think I was doing a little bit of practicing overrun on this other install that I have. I just moved some stuff over, or... No, that wouldn't show up there, would it? Anyway, what are we talking about? 38,317 kilometers. Right? Okay, yeah, let's create the node. Bang. Yeah, it's kind of odd looking to me. That is one thing, the proportions of stuff that we're dealing with, that the geosynchronous orbit, if my math is working right, it's more than halfway out to the moon. Yeah. Let's execute next node and watch it do its magic, huh? Whee! Going kind of fast. Charged the battery back up, so that was good. Move this over. Yeah, 3,500. Close that alarm. Thank you. I wonder if that screws up the... it doesn't appear to. It looks like it's doing its thing anyway. You know what I think I screwed up here is I never activated it. You see, it throttled up. Abort node execution. I forgot to just stage and turn the engine on. Whoops. Remove all the nodes. Okay. What are we coming up next? We're coming up to periapsis in a few minutes. Yeah, what I meant was I want you to change apoapsis. We're going to schedule a burn at the next periapsis. Again, pull this up. Oh, it's a remember the number for me. Create and execute. That was a really dumb mistake. You know that? And there it goes, and it's blazing almost 1G. Gonna take a while. Estimated burn over 4.5 minutes. This wouldn't be fun to do manually, anyways, would it? Yeah, we can allow probes to do this stuff with MechJeb. It'll be okay. I'll get over it. My pride isn't wounded too terribly bad, you know. Yeah, so while I'm sitting here watching this thing do its whole automatic program and telling myself it's okay, so here's my plan. What I'm thinking about doing is I need to set up a system for sending exploratory probes to other bodies. I'm going to do like a practice run on the Moon and the Minmus. I figured that if I'm going to send a launch an exploratory probes plural to say Duna or Eve or wherever else I decide that I want to go. And the thing to do is I need to put together a vehicle that's going to launch 4 probes at the same time, because I want to put 3, a minimum of 3 communication satellites around in an equatorial orbit around the body in question, and I'll also want to do one like a mapping, a ground scanning satellite into a more polar orbit. I figure I'll launch them all in one vehicle, and on their way. And I'll plan it so that, while they're on their way to Duna being a very, very likely candidate for the first time, then the mapping ground scanning probe will separate during the transition phase, and it'll do a little burn in order to insert itself into a polar orbit. I think, that it seems to me like maybe it should work. I would hope that the mapping satellite would be able to stay in contact with the 3 communication satellites while it sets up its burn. May have to reconsider that and actually send them separately. I don't know. We'll think about it. We'll do some more planning later on. Here I am. Oh, in a few seconds it'll be done. Won't that be pleasant? What's up here? 30,000 kilometers. So what's my target? Just over 38. I want 38.3. If it's anywhere just close to that, then we can fine-tune the numbers. See, it actually should have been just a little bit more. I wonder, let's take back manual control. Let's just bump that up just a little bit here. SAS right there. 38.317, right? Whoops, a little bit too far, but that's closer. I should have left it with the previous number. Look at all this stuff. No, I want to circular. Come on, I want to get a circular orbit. Circularize, yeah. How about that, huh? Schedule the burn at the next apoapsis. To circularize, create. Okay, so my vehicle's got 1,388 meters per second. Delta V remaining, create the node, and the node takes 1,078, so I got like a few hundred, about 300 reserve, like I planned. There's something wrong with this. 5 minutes 43 seconds, whenever this says that my entire, if I full throttle, would be 1 minute 23 seconds to do the whole thing. Oh, I see. I wonder why it changed that. There's an orbital period increasing. If I did this correctly, then that orbital period should be right around 24 hours when we're done. I'm just hoping I did it correctly. I'm always nervous about that stuff, It looks to me like we're screaming right on past 24 hours. It looks like I did not set this up correctly. Do we want to continue? Do we want to? Let's abort node execution. 4 hours. Let's let it finish this burn, and then so at least we'll be starting from a circular orbit. And then I'll figure out what I did wrong. Okay, so orbital period 1 day, 15 hours. So that works out, what that's like 30, almost 16 hours. How did I get that wrong? So what do we got? Yeah, 309 meters per second remaining that we can play with. Very, very close to circular orbit. How did I get it that wrong? I have to go back and I have to like question some of my assumptions here and stuff, you know? The satellite actually works correctly. It was just my figuring on the geostationary orbit. That was wrong. Geosynchronous anyway. Now, yeah, I think, yeah, just a real brief episode, so we'll stop at this point, and, you know, I'm gonna do some more, some of the more planning stages on some of these interplanetaries, what's-its. Yeah, I'll stop, and I will talk to everybody later. Goodbye.